Think Maserati and you'd probably picture something like this, or this. However, the Maserati I'm in today is of a very different type, shape and form. This is the Grecale, and by virtue of being an SUV, it's the most India-friendly Maserati you can buy.
The Grecale is Maserati's second SUV after the Levante, that's now in its run-out period, with production having stopped earlier this year. The Grecale is half a size smaller than the Levante and in dimensions slots in between a Porsche Macan and Cayenne. The Grecale's job is to fly the Italian flag in a segment crowded by German alternatives, and design is the differentiator. The classic Maserati elements are all there. The low-set concave grille, vents at the sides, the distinctive cut to the glasshouse, and the trident logo on the D-pillar. It's undoubtedly sporty in its stance and, like the latest Maseratis, looks better in person than it does on screen. To my eyes though, larger headlights would have given the Grecale a stronger face. Quad exhausts established the Grecale as something serious at the back, and not to get geeky, but the boomerang shape to the rear running lights and ridge on the bumpers are a visual link to the 3200 GT's iconic LED lights. All in all, the Grecale looks exotic, and that's half the job done. It's very inviting inside too.
This is a very interesting interior where old school Italian craftsmanship meets new age tech. There's a generous use of leather all throughout the cabin, and I really love this pattern on the dashboard. There's also a lot of tech, so you get 12.3-inch digital dials, a 12.3-inch touchscreen on top, and an 8.8-inch touchscreen lower down.
The main touchscreen is responsive and has lots to display, but the menus take some getting the hang of. As for the lower screen, we aren't fans of a touchscreen for the climate control system, but Maserati's is the best of the kind. Swipe left or right for blower speed, swipe up or down for temperature. In effect, you won't need to take your eyes off the road for basic AC settings.
There's also a fourth screen that might not have caught your attention. The analog clock is out and it's been replaced by a digital clock. Now you can opt between 3 digital clock faces. It also doubles as a compass, a G meter, as well as a throttle and brake meter. This is an Italian car, so of course it has to have its quirks and features, and there are quite a few on the inside of the Grecale. Now take the steering for instance. It's got a lot of buttons, including the start-stop button as well as the mode selector button, but you won't find any audio or volume buttons here. That's because they're actually hidden from view behind the steering spokes. Then if you look at the center console, you'll note that there's no gear lever here, and there's no Mercedes-like gear stalk behind the steering wheel either. That's because Maserati has opted for buttons for the gear selectors. So you have park, reverse, neutral, drive and manual on the center console. And when it's time to exit the car, you'll realize that there's no lever. A button does the job.
On the whole, the Grecale's interior feels warm, where a Porsche's feels businesslike. As for the back seat,
the Grecale is not an SUV I'd recommend for chauffeur-driven buyers, but the rear seat is still quite comfortable. Now, I'm just under 6 feet tall, the front seat is set to my driving position, and I am very comfortable on knee room. However, headroom is in short supply, my hair is brushing the roof liner. Also, a middle passenger will feel like an unwanted guest at the back here. The seat is well padded, but I do wish it got backrest. Just the angle is a bit too upright for my liking. Of the things that passengers at the back do get is a fold-down center armrest with 2 cup holders, as well as storage for a mobile phone, as well as a dedicated zone for the climate control system.
There's a very usable 535 liters of luggage space behind the rear seats, and flat fold seats means the space can be enhanced further. Sadly, no spare tire. All you get is a puncture repair kit. In terms of features, the Grecale gets quite a bit, including a panoramic sunroof, front seat heating and cooling, head-up display, a 360-degree camera, 3-zone climate control, and many of these are paid options. The Grecale is available in 3 flavors. There's the range-topping Grecale Trofeo with a 530 horsepower 3-litre twin-turbo V6 petrol engine from the MC20. The Grecale Modena and this Grecale GT aren't quite as special under the hood. A 2-litre turbo petrol engine is the source of power, but it packs in mild hybrid tech to assist the engine at full load, as well as an electric compressor to help bottom-end performance. The numbers sure are promising. 330 horsepower on the Modena and 300 horsepower on this GT. It's a likeable engine.
This engine isn't a large unit in absolute terms, but it's got the soul of a larger engine. It's got a lot more to give lower down in the rev band than you'd expect. It doesn't necessarily feel turbocharged, and what that means is that it always comes across as light on its feet. Find the right road, press down hard on the accelerator, and the Grecale will also rev very urgently to 6,000 RPM.
The 5.6 second 0 to 100 kph time means even in its mildest guise, the Grecale is fast. Top speed is limited to 240 kph. The Grecale sends power to all 4 wheels via ZF's 8-speed gearbox.
You'll be very tempted to use these dagger-sized paddle shifters, but the gearbox isn't lightning quick in its responses and won't grant you a high RPM downshift when you really want it. So it's best to leave the gearbox to its own devices.
The build of speed is backed up by a nice soundtrack.
The Grecale might just use a 4-cylinder 2-litre engine, but it still sounds sweet. The exhaust note is really wholesome. There is a buzzkill though, and that's the speed warning buzzer. The other thing, the Grecale sounds better and louder when it passes by you. The sound is actually quite muted on the inside. For the full sound effect, you'll need to dial things up to sport mode, and there's also a sport setting for the suspension and steering, and that brings in a bit more weight and makes the Grecale feel pointier.
The Grecale really comes into its own on a winding road.
The Grecale can handle. There's a crispness to the whole setup. The steering is light, but it's very precise. Grip levels are good throughout. And I'll have to say it, it's up there with a Porsche Macan in handling, and that is very high praise.
I'm not sure how many buyers will give handling much weightage, but the Grecale does comfort well too.
Now, it's not pillowy soft and there is a firmness to the setup, but you won't be chucked about even on the worst of patches.
And remember I said it's the most India-friendly Maserati?
Speed breakers are the nemesis of low-slung Maseratis. Thankfully, that's not a problem on the Grecale.
The Grecale GT packs in a few advanced driver assistance systems, and they worked well enough on wide, well-marked roads on our route. That's a quick taste of the Maserati Grecale. It's fast and comfy and stylish enough to stand out in a crowd of luxury SUVs. Thing is, the Grecale is not the largest SUV by size or engine capacity for the money Maserati wants for one, and that's sure to be a sticky point. Prices start at 1.31 crore rupees ex-showroom for this Grecale GT, which makes it pricier than a Macan, though the Porsche is older and in base spec makes less power too. At the top end though, the 2.05 crore rupee Grecale Trofeo does have the performance to hold its own amongst the super SUV heavyweights. The Grecale doesn't quite make a watertight case for itself, and your decision to buy one would be a heart over head one. Then again, isn't that true for all Italian exotics?